Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Let Me Have the Last Say. Let Me Have the Last Say is an educational podcast by myself, which seeks to educate and provide context into current topics. It looks at an argument from different angles, seeking to flesh out the reasons behind the fervent voices made by the people within the community. The podcast does not intend to provide a definitive conclusion to the arguments. Those are left to the listener's discretion. Episode 4: The Cacophonies of a Western Crusade Gone Wrong. This weekend was supposed to be the promised weekend. Malaysian youths were geared up, excited for the Good Vibes Festival, which was fast approaching. It was going to be the big one, the talk for weeks. Renowned musicians from around the world were coming to our little backyard in Malaysia. There'll be drinking, partying, and most of all, music. A weekend to unwind, relax, and let it all go. What could possibly go wrong? Never in anyone's mind did we imagine a transgression would unfold in front of our very eyes. No one predicted the insanity that would occur that night. No one foresaw the storm that was brewing. The 1975, a UK band that had been invited to perform, was clearly in an agitated mood that night. Reports indicated Matty Healy, the frontman, was in an agitated mood when he was on stage. He was upset and visibly drunk. At some point of the night, he bashed a drone that was recording him performing on stage. During that interim, throughout the performance, there was a point where he publicly voiced his disappointment and anger towards the Malaysian government regarding our LGBT laws, peppering the speech with profanities. In an outright unprofessionalism expected from a performer, he admitted that he booked the wrong show, then decided fuck it and wanted to cancel. Later on, he decided to perform so as not to disappoint his fans, but even then it didn't sit right with him as he claimed, because this was against his beliefs and he was standing up to it. He added that he didn't believe that the youths were the ones who were against LGBT, but it was more of how the government was deciding this, and I would quote, deciding whom he could have sex with. This culminated with him kissing bassist Ross MacDonald in the middle of the show. And to no one's surprise, a few moments later, their set was cut short and they were banned from Malaysia. Now, the story gets even juicier. Originally, the band was denied approval, but was later allowed entry because they had agreed to abide by the rules and regulations set by the Malaysian authorities, PUSPAL. If you are an international listening in, PUSPAL is the acronym for the Central Agency for Application for Filming and Performance by Foreign Artists. They're the government body that manages foreign artists performing in Malaysia. Usually, when a foreign artist comes to Malaysia, organizers of the show would get the rules and regulations as well as an agreement to which that all artists must abide by. Those are standard agreements that PUSPAL sends out to all these organizers. And the failure to adhere to the rules means PUSPAL now has the authority to sue the people involved. In this case, it will be the organizers. And so the organizers of Good Vibes Festival has been sued by PUSPAL. Now, this repercussion does call back an incident that happened last year. In 2022, Crackhouse Comedy Club KL had to shut down due to an indecent performance as well. The culprits were a Malaysian couple. They were well aware that their actions could have major consequences. They didn't care. The comedy club had an open mic policy to encourage new comedians to come up and perform. The performer, a 28-year-old Muslim woman, came up on stage and began to insult Islam. To add salt to the wound, she then stripped off her top to reveal her breasts. Unabashed and also proud of her act, she and her boyfriend uploaded the act on social media. They did come off with an equally harsh punishment, but I don't think it was as harsh as what had occurred to the owner of Crackhouse Comedy Club KL. The aftermath saw the owner losing his license, and he was forbidden from owning any businesses in his lifetime. From a mutual acquaintance that knew the man, I heard that they had mentioned he was also slandered by the public for failing to safekeep the sanctity of Islam. He received death threats, and there was constant fear for his own family due to the backlash. Now, entertainers were equally mortified by the outcome of comedy clubs closure because not only did they lose a place they could call home, now there were concerns on the boundaries they could navigate, whether a similar act could befell other places they perform, causing another shutdown, and would this signal the end of the indie scene? It was already tough as it is since the pandemic shut down the whole industry. How much more must they struggle to find an acceptable place in Malaysia? So there's already an example of an incident that has already happened and occurred here. And this was by locals, it wasn't like a foreigner. So the backlash or the experience that people were having was same but different. Honestly, I'm not surprised at the similar knee-jerk response that happened with Good Vibes Festival. Now, conservatives' right has always really been against the entertainment industry and the indie scene. So the fact that they're using this like a sword to keep people in line, not surprising. The last 2 days of the festival was cancelled, and I would say it is a good thing. Queer-friendly artists who could have performed could be in serious harm. So too would the concert goers, the youths who have been caught in a conflict, not of their making. I'm definitely glad that that's not happening to them. In fact, I read the announcement that Fahmi Fadzli, which is basically the head of this ministry board for entertainment, I read the announcement that he made for and with regards to Festival Good Vibes 2023. I'm going to read it out in Malay, but I'll translate it in English. And where I would start off would be, ingin saya tegaskan pendirian Kerajaan Perpaduan amat jelas. Tiada kompromi terhadap mana-mana pihak yang mencabar, memperkelek serta melanggar undang-undang Malaysia. Okay, so in this part, he's just saying that the stance of the government is very clear. We won't compromise. We won't compromise any to anyone who challenges, insults, and goes against our laws, Malaysia laws. I'm going to skip one paragraph and go down to the other one. Saya faham keputusan ini akan memberikan implikasi kepada penonton yang telah membeli tiket. Sehubungi itu, saya juga telah menggegas penganggur untuk mengenal pasti mekanisme ganti rugi kepada pembeli-pembeli tiket. Kerajaan sentiasa komited menyokong pembangunan industri kreatif dan kebebasan bersuara. Walau bagaimanapun, jangan sesekali menyentuh sensitiviti masyarakat, khususnya yang berpertentangan dengan adab dan nilai budaya tempatan. So in these two paragraphs, he says, I understand the decision will have implications towards viewers, concert goers who have bought the tickets. So I have already asked the organizers to identify mechanisms to replace and refund the ticket buyers. The government is committed to raising the creative industry and to the freedom of speech. However, don't touch on the sensitivities of the public, most importantly with regards to the cultures and practices of the locals. So this is a very, very strict way of how they're saying it. And yes, I actually feel that the downside of this is that the vendors who paid the deposits for this event, they can't earn a single cent from it. And let's just say, even if they get a refund back, the organizers are going to take a big hit from this, and they're not going to come out financially well. So in the end, what we're seeing is jobs are lost, people's livelihoods are affected, all because of this incident. Now, Malaysians know that when the government wants to curb a riot, they can employ drastic means. Even a simple protest like Bersih turned into a shit show with the police specifically, not the people, but the police specifically, pelting tear gas. The people fought back, and I think that that's equal in the sense of how it could turn like something as simple as a peaceful protest into what could be equated to a riot. But no one wants to see a spectacle like that again. We've seen it once. We're wary about it. We don't want that to happen. Now, my heart goes out to the Malaysian LGBT community because of an entitled rich white man who walks in thinking he can flaunt the rules like it's his own backyard. They will now have to suffer the consequences. I've said it on Twitter as well. Too often do we see Westerners have a lacking disregard and respect to the Eastern voices and cultures. Some things that are possible where they're from is not possible here. You cannot imagine the outrage, fury, and disappointment that's being talked right now amongst the progressive left in Malaysia, let alone the LGBT community. How fucking catastrophic this is. Like, can you imagine that? Years of progress to fight and claw their way for even the tiniest win set back in an instant. The blood, tears, and sweat to make sure there's a safe haven out there for people in this hostile country diminished. All this man, Matty, has done is point a spotlight at this minor community. He has actively endangered them, the very people he seems to be fighting for their rights. Now, in an article that was published on the 25th of February 2021, this reads, Selangor's law against gay sex unconstitutional by the federal court. Now, in this case, the federal court declared that a Sharia law in the Selangor state that criminalizes gay sex was inconsistent with the federal constitution and therefore void. And this resulted in a victory for a homosexual Muslim man who was accused of it. Now, I was really proud of this because it's very rare that you see an overturn in the laws. And specifically, the reason why I am calling out this particular article is because I want to give an example of a kind of law that is subjected here that people are living in fear of. And it reads, under Section 28 of Selangor Sharia's Criminal Offences Enactment 1995, it is an offence to commit sexual intercourse against the order of nature with any man, woman, or animal, which carries a maximum penalty of 5,000 ringgit. So at that time, it's about 1,200 USD. Fine, 3 years jail, and 6 strokes of the cane. Now, this is just one example of one of the rules and laws that we have here that's under the Sharia law itself. There are other Sharia laws and there are variations to it, and each state has their own version that they apply within the government itself. And this has been going on for the last 20, 30-ish plus years. So this is not something new here. You know, this law, the laws against gay sex that criminalizes gay sex has been around for a while. And there has not been any change by the government because everyone is happy. It's a very funny thing for me to even say this, but they're happy with it. The Conservatives are winning. You know, they've got one win here, and that is to prevent these sort of immoral acts from happening because it affects them, you know, it affects their beliefs in religion. And this is something that it's constantly being fought. So again, can you imagine that this one incident right now is now going to have such repercussions in the sense that these kind of laws, they could be read differently again when we might not have proper laws that will happen to be very supportive towards the LGBT community. We could see things like this be overturned because we could say that, hey, yes, it is unlawful. Now, going back, did you know that Swatch also got raided in Malaysia for having a pride collection? I think that most people wouldn't be made aware because maybe in other countries you have the pride collection and you're able to keep it great. You've got a watch that you can support and show your badge off. We couldn't have that. The government actually raided Swatch for having a pride collection here. So can you imagine if they can do this? What other actions can they do? It's not safe here. I've said this multiple times to a lot of people as well. Like, I support LGBT rights. I know a lot of friends who are gay, whether within Malaysia or outside of Malaysia, but I don't feel safe talking about it. I don't feel safe campaigning about it here because I know that the government is against these things. And understanding and respecting the fact that it's not possible to do it here means that whatever I do, I have to make sure that I'm towing the line. And that's what everyone here does. Anyone who's an advocate or a supporter, they are watching the line, they're towing the line, they're trying to make sure that they're doing it in a safe way where we are not giving any room for the government to come and persecute us or put us in jail because, you know, these kind of acts, anything that is related to LGBT, you could be seeing yourself 20 years in jail. The fine could be really high. You don't know what else is involved. I know that caning is involved, like, can you imagine being caned? And that hurts. Like, I mean, as a kid, as an Asian kid, I've lived through that. That hurts, you know. So I can't imagine how it feels like as an adult. And I've seen police have came to my school before and did a demonstration of like how they would punish criminals, and the canes that they're using. Oh my God, that's vicious. That is vicious. But that's the thing. I don't think Matty really understands how the LGBT community feels. I don't think, and I highly doubt, he lives in fear at every quaking moment, imagining the government knocking on his doorstep to lock him up. No, he gets to run off scot-free back home as though it's just a fleeting moment, whilst everyone else has to pick up the pieces. It's just like a dream. It didn't happen. I want to point out that his action, it's not allyship. Anyone who tells me that this man was just trying to show his support to the LGBT community, trying to help us stand up, bullshit. Bull fucking shit. Do you know what we call this? Performative activism. Performative activism, if you don't know what that is, it's a form of activism used to increase one's social capital or personal gain rather than genuine support towards a movement, issues, or causes. His very action reeks of it. He was throwing a tantrum. If you listened to the recording that are all over TikTok, you would hear and you can tell that he was just throwing a freaking tantrum on that day because he was upset. He was unhappy about something. No, actually, it's not even about something. He was unhappy about this and he was just throwing a tantrum. And if he genuinely was concerned about the LGBT community here, he would not have pulled that stunt. He would have found a different way to campaign and to voice it out. So to me, I say it was very, very selfish of him for acting that way. Now, I'm certain no Malaysian will accept his apology because even if he was not of sound mind, none of his band members stepped up to stop him. They allowed him to pull this off. So in a sense, it is calculated. It was a calculated move. We can see that. There is no way in hell no one with a rational mind would say, oh no, it was a slip of a moment, he didn't mean it. No, none of that. And what I'm really seeing from his action is the very reason why I'm so afraid of Westerners preaching to me their woke messages. It's not just performative activism. This also has white supremacy. And it has savior complex bundled up into it. Now, I can understand if it was someone within a community that's being prosecuted, facing the issues in Malaysia, speaking up. I will fear for them, but I will applaud them for their actions. But a white man, someone who spoke over the community as though he represents them, to save them, to be their spokesman? Are you off your rockers? The government's not going to change their mind for you. You're not the king of England. There's almost no way for any of us to put and to condense the amount of rage that's going on, the amount of disappointment that's going on right now. There's a sense of dread lingering in the air at the moment, and people aren't going to remember this concert for what it could have been. They're going to remember that the conservative right political parties will weaponize this. They're going to remember that there will be stricter rules against the LGBT community. This will and can spark more hate crimes towards them, more prejudice. Doors will be closed because people won't trust them. What disheartens me the most is the reverse reaction coming from the West. Now, here in Malaysia and even for some of the more conservative countries, a lot of people are expressing their outright shock. They are expressing gratitude that the Malaysian government was very quick to shut it down. They're expressing horror and dismay over the very action that had occurred. But in the West itself, it's very clear that they're very protective of this band, and they're like, oh my god, are they okay, are they all right, like, oh, well done, you've actually spoken up for everybody, well done in doing your job. Like, that's what type of messages we're seeing on the internet. And the instant anyone says and tries to correct them about what's happening, tries to educate them about why that act is not acceptable here, they are very quick to tell us off. Any attempts to explain gently about the fears here, ignored. Okay, the fears that LGBT folks go through, all ignored. I don't think that you can weigh this equally. You cannot blatantly ignore the tragedy that has happened to the community here. You cannot tell us that he did the right action, and how dare we not be supportive of it. No, it's not equal. It will never be equal. We are drenched in his shit, and he comes out smelling like roses. Our voices don't matter. You're just saying that we don't matter, even though this happened in our country. This happened here. What gives them the right again to represent our voice instead of accepting it? I think time and time again, this makes me feel so upset when I see topics like this. And it's very diversive, you know. It's diversive because it splits up the community as I know it. It splits up my understanding of what I see within Twitter, and even maybe an extension beyond Twitter itself. Because again, I think in one of my podcasts I mentioned about how Twitter is very Americanized, right? But with globalization comes the American culture. And a lot of the messages in the West is being pushed to the East. So we are expected to understand LGBT rights. We're expected to understand to fight for Asian rights, or POCs. Actually, that's the right word. POCs, people of color. Even though, like, I would never use that term POC here because I'm not a minority in the West, right? I'm a minority in my country, but I'm not like a minority completely. I mean, look at China. There's so many Chinese people there. Can you really say there's not a lot of Chinese people in the whole wide world? We're Chinese. We're yellow skin and we're everywhere, okay? So, like, I don't see the point of using even that term POC. It rubs me the wrong way because it's segregation. It's segregation done in such a way that I disagree with. And so, you know, coming back to this, it's the West is pushing out this agenda to us. We are supposed to be expected to participate actively in all these topics that I've mentioned countless times repeatedly. The fact we don't participate in it, they start coming out to tell us that, oh, you're being ignorant, oh, you're just ignorant, you don't understand the topic. Or they get angry with us and go like, how dare you not support your people? But you're not my people. I'm not from the West. I'm not from America. I don't need to fight this. This is no relevance to whatever I'm going through here. And this is also, and can you imagine that if I already am against those kind of topics, and I'm saying that I don't want to get involved in these things, why is it that when I say it, I'm being told that I'm ignorant and that and I'm being put down in a way, I'm being put down like I'm a dog. You know, it's like, oh, dad, you don't understand, you poor thing. What the hell? But the flip side of it, when we want to tell people off, they're like, no, we know better than you. Excuse me. Hello. What? How is this fair? How is this fair? And I think this is why you're seeing and you're hearing a lot of Malaysians, since this incident happened, come out publicly on social media itself and are talking about this actively everywhere, because the amount of and the reverse reaction of how this affects us, it's imminent. We know it's going to happen. We know it's coming, and everyone has been trying not to stir the hornet's nest. They're trying to make sure that none of these happens, and all it does is it just makes our lives more difficult. And no one is going to be there to protect us. It's not like the West is going to swoop in and say, okay, so we're going to take over for the Malaysian government and we're going to protect you. No, it doesn't work that way. I'm so sorry. We all know it doesn't work that way. It's not like we can run off that easily. You know, honestly, it really is something that I wish people had a lot more of an understanding, you know, a clearer mind of this. And so on this topic, this whole incident itself, I am not surprised with the action. I'm not surprised by the voices, the dissonant voices in the community itself, the anger, the frustration, because it doesn't affect one community alone, it affects a lot of communities, and all communities are intertwined. In Malaysia here, I mean, one thing I can safely say for sure is that no matter what, there's a very close-knit community around, and everyone is sort of like a family in a way. And that's how we look at everything. Everything's a family. It's all interlinked. Even on a religious level, they're interlinked with us somehow. And we've lived through this all our lives to know what is going to happen, how it's going to happen. And all everyone is doing right now is just waiting to see how far this is going to go. We're going to wait to see how far the government is going to react. We're going to wait to see what's going to happen to the ban itself, because, you know, what 1975 has done, it has consequences. I don't think he will get away that scot-free. I think he will a little bit, but I don't think it will be as good as he thinks it is. I honestly feel that if my country can react violently, there are going to be other countries that will react violently. China is not into LGBT. I can honestly say if you had if you had money coming in from China, China is going to shut you down. If you had money coming in from the Middle East is going to shut you down. So if you're just relying on money from countries that are okay with LGBT acts, then okay, fine. I think that you can survive. But honestly, if you're trying to build a market in other places, I'm so sorry. I feel like you've burned the bridges right now. And all I can do is just watch on the sidelines and popcorn and just see what happens. As for everything that's happening in Malaysia, like I said, we are all just waiting just to see how the situation unfolds. But the anger is there, the frustration is there, and without a doubt, there is a growing lack of trust in Western agendas. I can say that for sure. I can say that people are unhappy. And I do fear for the LGBT community again, this issue sparks a lack of trust. And for most of us who have been trying to educate on LGBT rights or to at least be more tolerant towards LGBT people, this doesn't bode well at all, because it's just going to paint them in another negative light. So we'll wait, we'll see, and I just hope things will improve and be for the better. Otherwise, yep, this is where I will definitely say this is Western Crusade gone wrong. All right, thank you guys so much for listening in. I hope I have managed to enlighten you a little bit of what's happened and about some of the scenes or incidents that have occurred in Malaysia, to give you a better picture, understanding of why people are upset, why people are frustrated, why there are a lot of voices coming in here and there. And I hope that you do leave a comment down below on YouTube itself to let me know your thoughts as well. I do realize that people will have different thoughts from mine. If you disagree, please do leave it down. It's still good for me to hear why you disagree. At the end of the day, all we are doing is exchanging opinions and thoughts about a topic that is relatively well known right now. And if you like the podcast, please do give a thumbs up, like and subscribe if you like more of these contents, and let me know if you like to see me discuss certain topics here, or you'd like to see improvements with the podcast. Until then, thank you so much for sticking with me and listening to Let Me Have the Last Say. I will see you on my next episode. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.